Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Pure Biology, and today I come with another video, or this is the second part of the pituitary gland. This is the posterior pituitary gland, and here the two hormones mainly secreted, that are oxytocin and the vasopressin. The role of the oxytocin, generally two functions occurred by the oxytocin, that means it helps in the baby birth and also help in the lactation process. So how this is possible? It just contract the uterine wall and that are needed to move the child out through the birth canal. Okay, and this hormone that stimulates, this is the first part where the oxytocin hormone help in the baby birth. How this is possible? By contracting the uterine wall, and that helps baby to come out through the birth canal. And the second process is the lactation process, and how this is possible? That it affects on the cells that surrounding or that the cells present in the mammary glands, and when the cells become contracted to release the milk. Okay, so how this is possible? Just after the birth, the stimulation of the breast by infant feeding stimulates the posterior pituitary to produce the oxytocin. So here, when the oxytocin is released, when the posterior pituitary becomes stimulated by the infant feeding or suckling of the infants, this creates one stimulation, and this stimulation release that oxytocin hormone, and that's why, and that helps in the when the oxytocin hormone is present in the blood, that means it helps in the milk production. In that way, it helps in the lactation process. So this is known as the birth hormone, and this is why? Because it helps in the two process related to the birth of the child. That's why this is called the birth hormone. And the second hormone that is called the vasopressin, or the ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So its role is what? It generally increases the reabsorption process of water by the distal convoluted tubule, or distal convoluted tubule, a collecting duct of the nephron, and thereby reduces the loss of water through the urine. So in case of nephron, the parts are distal. Mainly the parts are proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, and the collecting duct, and obvious first the part that is the glomerulus and the Bowman capsule, or the Malpighian corpuscle. So here the main role played by the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct, because reabsorption process that occurs only in these two parts. One is the distal convoluted tubule and another is the collecting duct. And if the reabsorption process is done by this ADH hormone, that means the concentration of the urine become balanced. Okay, so here this concentration, that's why what is called the diuresis, the nephron, and thereby reduces the loss of water. When the concentration of the urine that is balanced, so here the water reduction or the excretion of the more water that is controlled, and this is called the diuresis. And this diuresis process is totally controlled by the vasopressin hormone. That's why it is called the ADH, or antidiuretic hormone. Next, the urine that becomes more concentrated as water is reabsorbed. So in absence of ADH, what is happening? In absence of ADH, the water level becomes more, okay, because reabsorption is not possible as the ADH is not there, so reabsorption process is not occur. In that situation, more water releases from the body and increasing, this is, in absence of ADH, urine output increases more than tenfold. Maximum amount of urine or maximum amount of water that is released from the body. Okay, so it is this created another important function this creates, that is it also control the blood pressure. That means it ADH that causes the vasoconstriction and thereby increasing the blood pressure. Okay, so this blood pressure increasing is related to the what? This is related to the not diuresis, related to the water reabsorption. Why water reabsorption? Because if the ADH hormone is absent, so more water released from the body, and that creates that increase the blood pressure. Clear? Next one is that the pineal gland. Pineal gland is what? It is attached to the roof of, I think, one second. Okay, one thing I have to say, just I forgot that this ADH, when it helps in the reabsorption, simultaneously it constricts the blood vessels. Okay, it constricts the blood vessels, and this is called the vasoconstriction. And when the blood vessels become constricted, the flow of the blood that becomes slow, and in that way that increasing the blood pressure. Clear? So next part is the pineal gland. Pineal gland is what? Where it is located? It is attached to the roof of third ventricle of the forebrain. Clear? So where it is located? It is attached to the roof of third ventricle of the forebrain. And this gland consists of two parts. One is that masses of neuroglia and secretory cells. So masses of neuroglia and secretory cells. These secretory cells are called the pinealocytes. And the pineal gland that secretes what? This secretes the melatonin, and this is the amine hormone, and this is derived from the serotonin, and that itself is derived from the amino acid tryptophan. So tryptophan is the main source which first produce the serotonin, and from serotonin that melatonin is produced. And this melatonin that appears to contribute to the setting of the body's biological clock. As more melatonin is liberated during the darkness than the light, this hormone thought to promote the sleepiness. So what is saying that? First of all, how it is synthesized, you all understood. That tryptophan is the main source from where the serotonin is first synthesized, and then after that from serotonin the melatonin is synthesized. And it maintains the body's biological clock. When which time is for or its liberation or its secretion is mainly occurred or mainly possible? During the darkness. Okay, more melatonin that is liberated during the darkness, and obviously then the light. That means in the darkness you have to in the very short way or straight way, the melatonin is secreted in the darkness more than light, and this hormone promote the sleepiness. So that's why we feel sleep in the darkness. Or so what is the role of this sleepiness in the darkness? You all now understood that due to the secretion of the melatonin. Now melatonin is higher in the children than the secretion of the melatonin, that is very higher in the children so than the adult. And when the age become arise or age in case of we just follow the adult person or aged person, you can see that their sleepiness is very rare, or they can sleep very rare. Okay, or but in case of child you can see that the sleepiness is maximum. Okay, so this is the reason that melatonin is secreted is more in the child or in the children but than the adult one. Okay. And in case of amphibians and the fish, this pineal gland located where? Near the skin. And what is the function? The function is to detect the light. And in case of mammal, what is the function? It is located in brain, and light from the eyes that stimulates the gland via the optic nerve. That means here the pineal gland is not directly connected with the light. Here optic nerve that plays an important role, because light from the eyes that stimulates the gland via the optic nerve. Clear? Because directly light is not connected in case of mammal with the pineal gland, because it is present in the brain. So here optic nerve that plays important role for the stimulation of the that is the pineal gland, stimulation of the pineal gland, and that really helps to release the melatonin. Clear? So these hormones are explained here. So you just continue with my channel.